Real quickly, I want to note that John Gamadoro of Arizona Sports Radio, he's basically saying that the report is they're not going to trade Jalen Green and they're more than likely going to try and play them together in some sort of backcourt with Devin Booker. The video we're talking today was before that report came out, and just theoretically, just speculating off of the initial Zach Lowe report that and Michael Scotto that what could potentially be a trade or suitors for Jalen Green. Let me hear your thoughts if you're a Suns fan on what your thoughts of this backcourt, but let me hear your thoughts on where he could be traded if he were to be traded. I think they could just be keeping him to build up his value and then trade him down the line.
So Jalen Green might get rerouted. That's what Zach Lowe is saying eventually. But then you have Windhorst, who says that he thinks Dillon Brooks is more likely to get traded than Jalen Green. I kind of think Brian Windhorst is wrong. I think it's probably Jalen Green, just because Jalen Green does not fit with Devin Booker per se, because they both played the 2-3 position, small ball 3, natural 2s. And with Bradley Beal basically being untradeable, unless they buy him out, it's going to be even harder. And I just don't think you trade a defensive piece and your one true small forward in Dillon Brooks if I'm the Suns. So I'm just going to say Brian Windhorst, I think you're wrong right there. But Zach Lowe says the Suns to reroute Jalen Green, which, is eventual. And where would that be? I think that it does become difficult to see a world where you send Jalen Green. One team that does come to mind is the Chicago Bulls, especially if they do sign Josh Giddey. They're also gonna have to extend Kobe White, and I don't know if they're gonna be wanting to be a team that pays both guards over $30 million in Josh Giddey and Kobe White. So I think a dark horse team to look is the Bulls. Maybe you can do a deal where you send Jalen Green to the Bulls, and maybe you can get a Kobe White. And to me, that makes sense because, for example, right here, if you look, Chicago has a lot of salaries that they can play around with. There's also Lonzo Ball, Kevin Huerter, Zach Collins, Kobe White. Kobe's going to be expiring this year. And if you look at Phoenix, they have in Jalen Green a contract that, if we want to put it, $33.3 million. So in this world, if it is, you would assume maybe a deal where it's Kobe White and Zach Collins, or Kobe White and Kevin Huerter, or Kobe White and Patrick Williams for Jalen Green. Maybe it's because I think Lonzo has more value right now than obviously Patrick Williams and Kevin Huerter and Zach Collins. I think Kobe White obviously has the most value. I don't think they would be interested in Vucevic, the Suns. So the whole thing I'm thinking is you would do Kobe White with either Zach Collins, maybe even a Stick Smith, or a Zach Collins. I mean, there's also the other possibility where it could be maybe Huerter and Collins in a pick, but I don't think the Bulls are in a position to give up any picks. So when I look at that, especially and nothing against Green, I think Green's a valuable player. I think they want to pick for Green. I think his landing spots are tough at 23, especially on the contract that he's on. It's a contract set up to be extended. So you're going to have to send him to a team that's going to want to extend him after next season, because then he becomes almost an expiring, as he has a player option that he's more than likely going to decline. And he got better defensively this year. He averaged 21 points, 42% from the field, 35% from 3, 5 rebounds, almost 3.5 assists, a steal a night. The kid got better. And I think when you look at this, especially if they also have Dillon Brooks' contract that's $22 million, which isn't bad, but very unlikely in my opinion that they would be moving that, because Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, I think Royce O'Neal is being replaced probably by Dillon Brooks, and you probably try to flip Royce O'Neal down the road. I know they were looking to move Cody Martin, The Suns are seemingly going to decline Vazimizic's, right? That was a weird way to say that. Vazimizic's contract, which is like that's 8.1 you save, and I think they're going to keep Richards. So where you look at this roster going into next season, Oso Ighodaro, Brian Dunn, Nick Richards, Cody Martin, Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks. You need a big man in there, and that's why I think like getting a Zach Collins with a Kobe White, that ain't too bad. And especially if you can walk away with maybe, if they throw in some, like, I don't know if the Sumo would get thrown in there, maybe. And that's the problem when I start to look like, oh, what would be a different team? I don't know if Brooklyn wants Jalen Green. And what is Brooklyn even offering for Jalen Green? Cam Johnson and a bunch of other contracts. Like, I just don't think that works. And then you scope the league. I don't think the Clippers would be flipping Norman Powell for Jalen Green. I just think it's a really hard market to sell Jalen Green. Unless, like, you're cool bringing in, like, a Miles Bridges. You've done deals with the Hornets before, Miles Bridges. And, yeah, like, I just don't think there's anything else there. Like, Miles Bridges and Daquan Jeffries, like, I just don't think that's really getting you over the edge. A team that could be desperate is the Milwaukee Bucks, where they're like, how about we send you Kyle Kuzma, Pat Connaughton, and whatever. Like, I know their draft capital is completely depleted, but whatever they think they can offer, which is like basically nothing. So it becomes like incredibly difficult if you're a fan of the Suns and believing that they're going to be able to flip this, because I just told you Kyle Kuzma, Pat Connaughton, that's really not going to be getting anybody thrilled. And I don't think Philadelphia is desperate. I mean, Philadelphia would love to trade you Paul George for Jalen Green. I mean, Paul George's contract's atrocious. Is Utah the team that could be desperate, where they're like, how about Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson for Jalen Green, where basically you get 2 expiring contracts. Maybe they give you some draft compensation for this upcoming draft, and I just, like, that's the whole thing, is like when you start to like look around and try to figure out, oh, this could be potentially a route they go. I just think you start to come up on, sorry, like burped right there. You come up with a lot of hiccups where the team that they get traded to, I think right now Utah and Chicago make the most sense. Utah needs someone next to Lowry Markkanen, and Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson are 2 guys that they've been trying to get rid of. They're more scoring, undersized combo guards than point guards. You could draft a point guard in this year's draft. You're also drafting Trey Johnson, which assumingly could muck things up. And I get that being a concern. Now, Memphis did make a swing and move. Could they maybe reroute Contavious Caldwell-Pope and Cole Anthony to Phoenix for a Jalen Green? Maybe throw in one of those first round picks that they got. Or they could do Cole Anthony and Brandon Clark, and then maybe throw in a John Conchar and keep Contavious Caldwell-Pope and have Jalen Green there with Contavious Caldwell-Pope, and they send Cole Anthony, John Conchar, and Brandon Clark, which right there, that's 25.6 plus 6, 31.765. So just a little under almost perfect salary match. I think that's not terrible.